Morning, YouTube. Back in the garage this morning. I'm going to try and get the magazine for the do-it-yourself sheet metal handgun done today. I worked on a couple prototypes. I live in the middle of nowhere. I had a hard time. It calls for 24 gauge. I finally found some sheet metal here, and I want to cut everything out, including the hammer and the sear with the Arc Droid, to see if I can do it. I don't know if I get to the 1/4 inch stuff, if I can be precise enough with that, as small as the parts are. But we're gonna try, so let's get at it. Okay, I've already homed the machine. I'm gonna load my program in, which I have is the mag with holes, DFX. What I did was I took a picture, then traced everything with the Bezier tool because it was more accurate. Always when I put a DFX file in Arcdroid, I don't know why, but the size isn't correct. So we'll get this width correct. What I did was I measured, this is supposed to be exact. So I measured the drawing, and the width is 2.56 and the height is 3.35, and that's in inches. So if I put in my, I got it, 5, then my height is exactly 3.35. I think I have to calibrate my touch on my Arc Droid. It's getting a little hard to push. So I accept that. Then I want the input origin to be centered. And then if we look, I have the cut wrong, if you can see that. So I want to be a left-handed cut. My holes look correct. And I want to sort by inside out. Okay, now everything looks good. One of the problems I had is I had trouble finding the right gauge sheet metal. I think it calls for 24. The best I could do was 22. I've made a few, cut out a few of these already. Here's one I've done. My worry is that where it holds the bullet right on the end isn't going to be strong enough, and I may have to heat treat it. I made the spring out of RC model airplane push rod that's spring steel. We'll see how well that works. Anyway, we'll turn everything on and get to cutting out. Okay, so sometimes I like to do a trial run. But what I like to do sometimes, it's easier than just changing your zero if you have a small piece of sheet metal, is I'll come over here and I'll just move the sheet and then do a trial run. Make sure it's pretty thin stuff, but just make sure it's where I want it. And sometimes that's easier than bothering to try and get it just right. So I can see I want to come this way to save on the sheet metal a little bit. And we're gonna leave it right there. We'll waste a little bit, but that looks good. Okay, so now that we've tried that, we'll go ahead and run the machine. I'm holding it down because I don't really think it's so thin. I don't trust that it'll stay. I cut the 2 holes because I built a template for Okay, now that we got it cut out, the plans call for scoring your mag where the lines are with a Dremel tool, but I build a tool and we'll put it on here in a second. I can't do it one-handed. I should get a stand for the phone, but anyway, we'll put that on the tool, go over to the vise, and we'll bend that mag. Okay, I'm over here at the vise. I have the cutout mag frame sitting in my tool and clamped in the vise. So what I do is I just bend it. Oh. And let's really, I probably didn't need to hammer that. Okay, then I take it out of the vise. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. So I pulled it out of the vise and bent it the rest of the way around my tool. Now I'll clamp it back in the vise and I'll bend the last bit. Okay, so I have it clamped back in the vise. Now I will just take my hammer, let's see if I can do this one-handed, and pound that back. You don't need it a lot. Okay, and then it's pretty much done. You still have to tack it with in a few places right here on the end to hold it together, and then bend it where it's going to hold the bullet. Well, here's a bent mag out of the tool. Turned out pretty good. Like I say, the only thing I'm worried about, I may have to heat treat these ends. We'll go and proceed to weld it. So here I have it set up, ready to weld. I should have welded it with my TIG, but I'm too lazy to get it out. So I get trusty Miller 211 out. I've set the settings pretty low on the feed, about 1.5, and probably this wire speed's 30. Anyway, the reason I don't TIG it is because I have a mess in here right now. There's my TIG table and my TIG, and so we'll just turn it down and use this trusty old MIG. So what I've done is just tacked it in a few places. If I try to weld it, I've noticed that I can weld it fine, but if you get any gobble weld on the inside, it causes you grief. So I just kind of touch it in a few spots. The original plans even say you can black tape the mag together, but we're gonna try and do a little bit better job. So this is what the mag looks like after I'm done welding, and then I just grind down the welds with my 4.5-inch angle grinder. Anyway, try not to get too carried away when you tack it, because if you get anything on the inside, your follower will hit it. I'm sure if I use something besides this galvanized sheet metal, it would probably be better, but that's all I could find at the hardware store around here. Maybe later I'll use some better material. Anyhow, that's all for now. Here's with it somewhat finished with the follower in it. Seems to work good. We'll see when it gets in the firearm.